The metal courtroom door slammed open so hard that half the room jumped in fear. Reporters instantly lifted their cameras, while whispers exploded across the crowded courtroom in Houston, Texas. A young black man wearing orange prison clothes was dragged inside by two officers while people sitting in the gallery stared at him like he was already guilty. His face looked bruised, his lips were cracked, and there was dried blood near his eyebrow. But the cold expression on Judge Harold Whitmore's face never changed for even 1 second. "Marcus Reed," the judge said slowly, while adjusting his glasses. "You stand accused of armed robbery, assault, and attempted murder. Considering your criminal behavior and the overwhelming evidence against you, this court will decide whether you spend the rest of your life behind bars." Marcus swallowed hard and looked around the room. Every eye felt heavy. Every camera flash felt like another bullet hitting his chest. He knew nobody in this courtroom believed him. Not the reporters, not the jury, not even his exhausted public defender who barely looked awake anymore. But Marcus kept repeating the same words in his head. "I didn't do it." 3 nights earlier, Marcus had been delivering food through downtown Houston during a violent thunderstorm. Life had already been difficult enough. His mother was sick with kidney failure, medical bills were piling up, and every dollar he earned disappeared before the week even ended. Still, he worked every single day without complaining because he believed hard work would eventually change things. That night, he received a delivery request to a luxury high-rise apartment near River Oaks. Expensive cars lined the streets while rain poured like waterfalls from the dark sky. Marcus parked his old Honda and carried the food toward the building entrance. Before he could even step inside, he heard screaming echo from the alley nearby. At first he froze. Then he heard a gunshot. Marcus ran toward the sound without thinking. Deep inside the alley, a white man wearing an expensive gray suit lay bleeding beside a black SUV while another masked man pointed a gun at him. The attacker grabbed a leather briefcase and sprinted deeper into the rain before Marcus could react. "Help me," the injured man whispered weakly. Marcus rushed forward immediately and pressed his hands against the wound. Blood soaked through his hoodie instantly. "Somebody call 911, Marcus yelled desperately. But when police arrived minutes later, everything turned into a nightmare. The injured businessman pointed weakly toward Marcus before passing out unconscious. "Basim." Those 2 words destroyed Marcus's life. "Ha!" Police tackled him into a puddle before he could even explain. Officers punched him repeatedly while reporters nearby recorded everything on their phones. Marcus screamed that he was innocent, but nobody listened. They found the businessman's blood on his clothes, the briefcase missing, and surveillance footage showing Marcus entering the alley moments before the shooting. To the world, it looked obvious. Case closed. Now Marcus stood inside the courtroom while prosecutors painted him as a violent criminal from a poor neighborhood who attacked an innocent wealthy businessman for money. Every sentence they spoke made the jury stare at Marcus with even more disgust. "The victim," the prosecutor said dramatically, "is respected businessman Edward Lawson, owner of one of Texas's largest investment firms, a hardworking father, a successful American citizen. Meanwhile, the defendant has years of financial struggles, debt, and desperation." Marcus clenched his fists. Desperation, that word burned inside him because it was true. He had been desperate to save his mother, desperate to survive, desperate to escape poverty, but he was not a criminal. The prosecutor played surveillance footage on a giant screen. Grainy video showed Marcus entering the alley during the storm. Another clip showed police pinning him to the ground beside the bleeding victim. "That man tried to help him," Marcus's attorney argued weakly. "There's no footage showing Marcus firing any weapon, but there is also no footage showing another suspect," the prosecutor replied confidently. "And the victim himself identified Marcus Reed before losing consciousness." The courtroom murmured. Marcus looked toward the jury and felt hopelessness spreading through his chest. Some jurors refused to even look at him anymore. Then Judge Whitmore leaned forward coldly. "Mr. Reed," he said, "people like you always claim innocence after getting caught." The room became silent. Marcus stared at the judge in disbelief. "People like you?" Those words hit harder than the handcuffs digging into his wrists. His attorney objected nervously, but the judge waved him off immediately. Over the next week, Marcus's trial became national news. Media channels showed his mugshot nonstop beside headlines calling him the River Oaks shooter. Online comments flooded with hatred. People called him dangerous, violent, another thug from the streets. Nobody cared about the truth. Inside county jail, Marcus barely slept. Some nights he sat alone staring at the ceiling while thinking about his mother. She was too weak to travel to court, but she called him every evening crying through the prison phone. "You're a good man, Marcius," she whispered one night. "Don't let them break your spirit." Marcius closed his eyes tightly. "I'm trying, Mom." But every day became harder. Then something unexpected happened. Late one night, another inmate named Curtis quietly approached Marcus inside the jail cafeteria. "I know you didn't do it," Curtis whispered. Marcus frowned immediately. "What?" Curtis glanced around carefully before sitting beside him. "My cousin works security at Lawson Investments. Your victim, Edward Lawson. He's dirty." Marcus stayed silent. Curtis leaned closer. "People disappear around that man. Money laundering, bribes, human trafficking rumors. But rich people protect each other." Marcus felt chills run down his spine. "What does that have to do with me?" Curtis looked nervous now. "I heard Lawson had evidence against some powerful people. Maybe somebody wanted him dead." Marcus's heartbeat started rising. For the first time since his arrest, something finally felt wrong about the entire case. The next morning, Marcus begged his attorney to investigate Ed Wallison's business connections, but the exhausted lawyer shook his head helplessly. "We don't have resources for that," he admitted quietly. "Public defenders don't get miracles." Marcus. Meanwhile, outside the courthouse, protesters gathered demanding harsh punishment. Reporters chased dramatic headlines nonstop. Dr. Whitmore loved every second of the attention. On the final day of trial, the courtroom overflowed with spectators. Marcus's mother finally arrived, wearing an old church dress, while holding a cane weakly. Her tired eyes immediately found Marcus across the room, and she forced a small smile despite her fear. Marcus almost broke down crying right there. The prosecution gave one final dramatic speech. Edward Lawson nearly died because of greed and violence. The prosecutor declared loudly, "If we allow criminals like Marcus Reed to escape justice, then no successful American is safe anymore." Marcus's attorney stood afterward, but his voice lacked confidence. "There is reasonable doubt," he argued softly. "No murder weapon was found, no fingerprints, no eyewitnesses besides a wounded victim under severe trauma." But Marcus could already see the jury's faces. Their decision was made. After hours of deliberation, the jury finally returned. Marcus felt his stomach twisting violently while the foreman stood up behind the defendant. Suddenly, the courtroom doors exploded open again. Everyone turned in shock as armed FBI agents stormed inside. "Federal agents!" one shouted. "Nobody move!" Chaos erupted instantly. Reporters jumped from their seats, while officers grabbed their weapons nervously. Judge Whitmore slammed his gavel furiously. "What is the meaning of this?" A tall FBI agent stepped forward holding a thick folder. "Judge Harold Whitmore," he announced loudly, "you are under federal investigation for obstruction of justice, bribery, and conspiracy connected to Edward Lawson." The entire courtroom froze. Marcus blinked in disbelief. "What?" the judge whispered. More agents entered, dragging a terrified man in handcuffs. Edward Lawson, alive. The wealthy businessman looked completely broken now. His expensive appearance was gone. Sweat covered his face while cameras flashed wildly around him. The FBI agent opened the folder slowly. "Last night, Mr. Lawson agreed to cooperate with federal investigators after evidence surfaced connecting him, Judge Whitmore, and multiple city officials to a trafficking and money laundering operation spanning several states." Gasps filled the courtroom. Marcus's mother covered her mouth in shock. The FBI agent continued speaking while reporters practically climbed over seats trying to record everything. The attack on Edward Lawson was carried out by another business partner attempting to silence him before he could expose the operation. Marcus Reed was falsely identified under pressure from corrupt officials who needed a quick scapegoat. Marcus stopped breathing for a second. "Scapegoat." The FBI agent turned toward Marcus. "Mr. Reed," he said clearly, "you are officially cleared of all charges, effective immediately." The courtroom exploded. Judge Whitmore suddenly stood up, screaming angrily while agents moved toward him. "This is ridiculous. You can't do this to me." But the FBI agent calmly placed handcuffs on the powerful judge in front of everyone. "Yes," he replied coldly. "We can." Cameras flashed non-stop while reporters shouted questions from every direction. Some jurors looked horrified. Others looked ashamed for ever believing Marcus was guilty. Marcus himself couldn't move. After weeks of humiliation, fear, and hopelessness, he simply stood there frozen while officers slowly removed his handcuffs. The metal chains finally fell from his wrists, and for the first time in weeks, Marcus felt air enter his lungs properly again. His mother suddenly rushed toward him, crying uncontrollably despite her weak condition. Marcus hugged her tightly while cameras captured the emotional moment across the courtroom. "I told you," she whispered through tears. "I told you God would bring the truth out." Outside the courthouse, the story exploded nationwide within hours. News channels that once called Marcus a criminal now called him a hero and victim of corruption. Protesters demanding his imprisonment disappeared instantly. People online suddenly acted outraged about racism and injustice, even though many of them had insulted Marcus days earlier. But Marcus noticed something painful. Nobody apologized. Not really. The police officers who beat him faced investigation, but most claimed they simply followed procedure. Reporters who destroyed his reputation quietly deleted old posts without admitting fault. Judge Whitmore refused interviews while federal charges stacked against him daily. And Marcus still had nightmares every night. Weeks later, Marcus sat beside his mother during her dialysis appointment while television screens inside the hospital showed updates about the corruption scandal. Millions of dollars, missing victims, secret payments, powerful names. It felt unreal. "You okay?" his mother asked softly. Marcus nodded slowly. "I'm trying." The hospital receptionist suddenly approached nervously. "Marcus Reed." Marcus looked up carefully. "There's someone here to see you." A young white woman stood near the entrance holding a small recorder and notebook. She looked nervous. "My name is Emily Carter," she said quietly. "I'm a journalist." Marcus immediately felt anger rise inside him. "No interviews." "I know," she replied quickly. "But I'm not here for a story." Marcus stayed silent. Emily swallowed hard before speaking again. "I covered your arrest," she admitted painfully. "I helped spread lies about you before knowing the truth. I came to apologize." Marcus stared at her face for several seconds. "You ruined my life for ratings," he said quietly. Tears formed in her eyes instantly. "I know." Marcus looked away toward the hospital window. Rain poured outside exactly like the night. Everything changed. "You know what hurt most?" he asked softly. "Nobody saw me as human. Not even for 1 second." Emily couldn't answer. Because he was right. Weeks passed, and Marcus slowly tried rebuilding his life. Donations poured in from strangers after the FBI revelations, helping cover his mother's medical bills. Civil rights organizations contacted him daily. Lawyers offered free representation for lawsuits against the city. But fame felt strange. Everywhere Marcus went, people stared at him now. Some recognized him from television. Some treated him like a celebrity. Others still looked suspicious. One evening, Marcus visited the same alley where his nightmare began. The storm was gone now. Expensive cars still passed nearby while wealthy people laughed outside restaurants as if nothing had happened. Marcus stood quietly staring at the wet pavement. He remembered the fear, the punches, the cameras, the hatred. Then he remembered something else. The mask should have. Nobody had caught him yet. Suddenly Marcus heard footsteps behind him. "You shouldn't be here alone." Marcus turned quickly. It was FBI agent Daniel Hayes, the same man who cleared his name inside court. Marcus frowned. "Why are you following me?" Hayes sighed. "Because the people connected to this case are dangerous." Marcus crossed his arms. "I thought Lawson confessed everything." "He confessed enough to save himself," Hayes replied carefully. "But not everything." Marcus felt tension rising again. "What does that mean?" Hayes looked around before lowering his voice. "The man who actually shot Lawson still hasn't been identified, and before Whitmore was arrested, he erased a lot of evidence." Marcus stared at him silently. Then Hayes handed him a photograph. Marcus looked down and instantly froze. The blurry photo showed the masked shooter entering a black SUV moments before the attack. But what shocked Marcus most was the license plate. He recognized it. That exact SUV had been parked outside Judge Whitmore's private country club 2 months earlier when Marcus delivered food there. His heartbeat accelerated. "You think Whitmore hired the shooter?" Marcus whispered. Hayes looked grim. "We think somebody much bigger did." Suddenly, a black car turned the corner slowly nearby. Agent Hayes instantly grabbed Marcus's arm. "Get down!" Gunshots exploded through the alley. Glass shattered everywhere while people screamed from nearby sidewalks. Marcus and Hayes dove behind a dumpster as bullets slammed into brick walls around them. Marcus's heart pounded violently. The black car sped away seconds later before police sirens echoed in the distance. Hayes looked furious now. That wasn't random. Marcus realized something terrifying at that moment. The nightmare wasn't over. Someone still wanted silence. And Marcus Reed was still alive.